Welcome everyone to Connecting with the Dream, Poetry of a Nation, Part 1. I'm so happy to see everyone, and here is our program. I'll just go through some notes. We're gonna ask everyone to keep your microphones on, except when you're speaking, you turn it on and then you turn it off. Items 1 through 6 on our program here will be recorded for everyone. And then we'll turn off the recording and we'll turn on the mics and we can have a nice fellowship. We'll be breaking into smaller groups. We're gonna have greetings from Charlotte Cabri, who is the chair of Greenwood County Diversity. And we're gonna start off with a poem called A Creed by Edwin Markham. And interspersed throughout our evening, we have some quotes from Benjamin E. Mays. And I'll be introducing each poet as we go along. We have Fred Bassett, Robert Hayden, Robert Frost, Langston Hughes, and Derek Walcott. Now, to some extent, the writers whose work you will experience today reflect the diversity that Greenwood County Diversity aims to promote. Most of them grew up in the US, but they have lived in different regions: the Northeast, the West, the Midwest, the Caribbean, and the Deep South, including right here in Greenwood. They all lived, loved, and worked during the time of segregation and the Civil Rights Movement. Some of them were well acquainted with and influenced by the speeches and sermons of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. One, Benjamin Mays, was Dr. King's spiritual mentor. Some had other talents, including painting. One was a farmer. They achieved high degrees from the nation's best universities, and some dropped out of college. One was a Nobel Prize winner. Others were national or state poet laureates. They wrote novels, plays, and newspaper columns, as well as poetry. Some were also activists. They took a stand for equal rights and justice. One is still taking a stand, founding GCD member Fred Bassett, who is here with us. Some grew up without their birth father. One was practically orphaned. Some endured great difficulties during childhood and tragedies in adult life and disabilities. For instance, Mr. Hayden's eyesight was severely limited from birth. These gentlemen wrote all kinds of poems, long poems, book-length epic poems, short, sweet poems, poems for young people, poems of protest and dissent. Some vehemently proclaiming the right to be heard, others much more subtle in nature. Poems about people they admired, poems about love of family, countrymen, and the whole human race. As the poems are read, I want you to listen out for these common themes: brotherhood, equality, justice, and nobility of character. This event is being recorded and will be made available to you in the near future. In most cases, the words of the poems will be displayed on the screen, but in some cases, they will be provided in the chat box. I now invite Charlotte Cabri, GCD Chair, to bring greetings.
Greenwood County Diversity is excited to be able to sponsor Connecting with the Dream, Poetry of a Nation. And we are especially grateful to those of you who will be reading, entertaining, and inspiring us today. And I do want to turn this back over to Niki Daniels. Poetry of a Nation was her dream, and she has made it a reality for all of us tuned in today. Thank you, Niki, and let's get on with the event.
So without further ado, I'm going to ask Chris, every time he sees one of these quotes by Benjamin E. Mays, he's going to be the voice that is speaking the quote.
Dr. Mays said, "It's not in your environment, it's you, the quality of your mind, the integrity of your soul, and the determination of your will that will decide your future and shape your life."
A Creed by Edwin Markham will be read by Reverend Norman.
A Creed by Edwin Markham. There's a destiny that makes us brothers. None goes his way alone. All that we send into the lives of others come back into our own. I care not what his temples or his creeds. One thing holds firm and fast, that into his faithful heap of days and deeds, the soul of man is cast.
So we're going to read some poems now by Fred Bassett. Fred is a native of Alabama. He now lives in Greenwood, South Carolina, and his poems have been published in more than 80 journals and anthologies. He has 4 books of poetry and 2 novels. His collection, The Old Stoic Faces and Mirror, tells stories of family, friends, neighbors, and students, people he interacted with along his spiritual and intellectual journey. My friend and neighbor, Fred Bassett, is very conscious of the fact that we are social animals, that we would not be human without social connections.